There's a lot of noise in restoration right now, but here's what separates the companies that come out the other side from the ones that don't. It's not luck, it's not timing. It's what you built before the moment arrived. Mark Davis has proven that more than once. He co-founded Belfor in North America, acquired PuroClean in 2015 when it had 200 locations and franchisees looking to leave. 10 years later, 520 locations under private ownership with no outside investors and no pressure for a return. Just a long-term bet on people, infrastructure, and getting it right. In April 2026, KnowHow CEO Leighton Healey sat down with Mark at PuroClean headquarters in Tamarac, Florida. This is that conversation.
So, Mark Davis from small town Nebraska to Tamarac, Florida, in this beautiful training center. The PuroClean has this amazing facility to support your owners. Thanks for making time. Thanks for letting me be here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Mark, we're going to cover a lot of ground. I'm excited to get into a variety of topics. I actually remember I was at I think it was an Elevate conference the first time I was walking along and someone said, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "I don't." He said, "That's Mark Davis. You need to know that guy. He's a real mover in this industry." And I remember thinking, I said, all right, well, one day maybe I'll meet the man, the myth and the legend. And so here we are, and we've had a few conversations. So let me ask you this: what's something about you that typically takes a while for people to learn about you? You say, like, well, if you knew me for a long time, you'd probably know this about me.
Oh, I would say probably that I grew up in one of the smallest towns and played 8-man football. I mean, because when people think of the success, or they think of me because I've lived in bigger cities and I've been relatively successful in this restoration industry. But I grew up in a beautiful small town, and it wasn't just a small town. I went to a small school, and you didn't have to try out for anything. If you wanted to be on the one-act play, you were a starter. You had an acting role, like a lead role, not lead necessarily, but you were in the one-act play. If you wanted to be on the Spanish club, if you wanted to play football, you could start. Now basketball, because there's only 5, you might be on the bench. But the point is, no matter what, and it was part of the beauty of being in a small town and going to a very small school, you had an opportunity to do everything. And so I think that's, because some people have different perceptions, but that small town, farm town, Nebraska upbringing, it's not just was the foundation, and where I grew up with an amazing family, and my mom and dad were married for 60 plus years, and I have 4 older sisters that were all overachievers. And my father was very strict, and I think I needed it, right? But so I think that's the one thing is just coming from a very small town and very, very humble beginnings.
Curious, what would be different about you today if you didn't have that origin story?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's all about your foundation. So I don't know, and I wouldn't even want to think about that, because success can cause issues.
Yeah, 100%.
For people. I'm not saying I haven't had my own. I'm human, right? But I think that grounding, and my mom, God bless her, she's up in heaven now, but when she was alive, the success in restoration happened pretty quickly. So believe me, my parents all along the way were saying, just remember, you're gonna stay humble, you're gonna stay humble. And my father, who's 93, and I talk to him every day, we continue that conversation to this day. It's very important.
Keeps you rooted, keeps you grounded. Maybe to give you a chance to brag a little bit, I've always found you to be a very inspiring person. There's many people share that opinion, that you're a very inspiring person, but what inspires you?
The thing that inspires me the most, and I think why I love being part of a franchise system, is the opportunity to work with families or partnerships, or even just individuals that want to take that leap, that entrepreneurial step into owning a restoration company. It's that same leap that I took, I definitely blind faith, and really more of, they say ignorance is bliss. I didn't know what I was doing when I was 27 when I took that leap to get into restoration. But I had some people help me along the way. And without that help, we would not have been successful. And so what really inspires me is I have the opportunity to pay it forward through a franchise system, PuroClean. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And so knowing that I made a lot of mistakes and hopefully learned from most of them, is that makes it really rewarding to be part of a franchise system where I get to be part of a team, because we have an entire team, a family that helps support our franchise owners from the moment they graduate in our academy right here and go through their training right here in our flood house. I am aware and involved. I stay engaged. Same with my business partner, Frank Torrey. We're still very, very engaged and will be. And so that is incredibly, it's not just inspiring, it's rewarding, it's fulfilling, it's energizing, because that energy, that excitement that you can feel, I still have it, meaning I had it in a different way where it was more anxiety. I don't know if it was anxiety, but it was more of...
It sounds like it was like just vigilance.
Yes, and just the desire to not just be successful. I think it's just as much of a desire that to not fail. And I think fear of failure is a good thing, okay, because it is a very, very good motivator.
Yeah. I think it keeps you from making reckless decisions. There's a difference between, in different industries, I've been very entrepreneurial, and I remember I was on this panel and someone asked me, they said, well, I could never be an entrepreneur because I'm just not this reckless gunslinger. I said, well, make no mistake. Entrepreneurs want to win. And if they don't think that there is a high certainty of winning, they're not going to do it. But if they think there's gold in that mountain and they have certainty, you bet, like, they're just going to lean in. But I think what you're describing is, there's a confidence that there is opportunity, but there's an awareness that this could dismantle very quickly if we're not focused. Yeah. So you've been in this industry for over 30 years.
Yes.
I was going back to when someone pointed out Mark Davis. Maybe a year later, I was chatting with someone, and I asked them. I said, "Hey, if there was a Mount Rushmore in restoration, what I've learned is that on one side there'd probably be the founding fathers of, let's call it, the science behind the service. Some people that figured out air moving and they figured out all that. But then there are, let's call it, the business builders who developed, let's call it, the actual opportunity and proved that there is in fact a market here. And more than one individual have told me that your bust would be on that mountain, which is pretty impressive. So let's go back. So 30 years, Rocky Mountain catastrophe in Denver. You and Jeff Johnson get this thing going, young, late 20s, like you said, probably a good cocktail of confidence and didn't know what you were doing. But take us back there. What did 4 years of Rocky Mountain catastrophe teach you? And then I'd love to hear when the Swiss banker showed up on the scene.
Well, a lot of people say, how were you successful? That's a very open-ended question.
Yeah.
Like anything in life, and I think this would be for not just a business, it could be for a marriage, a partnership, whatever, is choose your partner or partners wisely. And I was very fortunate to have Jeff Johnson as my first business partner. And so it happened to be restoration, and it's specifically Rocky Mountain catastrophe that we discovered. And that was our then platform to get into business together. But Jeff and I had already agreed we wanted to be in business together.
How'd you meet Jeff? Because Jeff, he's a pretty serious leader himself. Like,
He
First On
is
Site
incredible.
First On Site is a major player.
Yeah, and that's just part of what he's done. I mean, he's incredible. But the way we met, so I grew up in Nebraska, small town. We didn't have the resources to go on vacation, so that wasn't much travel. And so on a particular Saturday, Auburn was playing Alabama on ABC. And my father, now I'm in small town Nebraska City, and he says, Auburn's a beautiful campus. And I said, Dad, where is Auburn? Oh, it's in Alabama, just like Alabama is. I said, oh, okay. I said, when were you there? He said, well, I worked for my college fraternity between 1954 and 56, and I got to see all 50 states. I'm like 12 years old, and I said to myself, ding, ding, ding. I've only been to Iowa and Nebraska, because Iowa's 10 minutes away. I said, I think I'm going to do that job. So I made a decision at 12, I want to do that same job of working for a fraternity.
Really?
So I joined the same fraternity. I was hired to work for the fraternity, and my first boss was Jeff Johnson. What? And he had been a SIGEP at University of Colorado, and he had had that job 1 year before me, so I came in at 22, Jeff was 23, Jeff's my boss, and we worked together for the next 3 years.
Wow.
And then I became National Expansion Director, so the way Jeff and I, our partnership was of working for the fraternity, I would start new chapters from scratch, as in land at University of North Dakota in Grand Forks with nothing but a couple of Joseph A. Bank suits, stay at the Motel 6, and I'd park up at the Student Union and start a fraternity. And then once it was started and I'd pick the leadership team, then Jeff would manage its growth, but I would create the company, the chapter, and then Jeff and his team would make sure it was successful. So we knew we had this partnership of kind of a different set of skill sets, where I could sell, he's really great at operational management, and so then when we left the fraternity, where we made no money but made an impact on young men's lives, as the fraternity had done in ours.
And learned these skills, like
very
transferable skills.
At an incredible young age, where we were given an opportunity to, if you think about it now, being in a franchise business as well, we help small businesses get started. That's what Jeff and I were also doing at the fraternity, was helping small chapters get started and picking young leaders and giving them responsibility. Yeah. Like we were given that responsibility. So we wanted to be in business together, and we wanted to be in Denver. That's all we knew. And then we were introduced to Rocky Mountain Catastrophe as a very small company that was for sale, and the husband and wife agreed to seller finance it for us for most of it. We did borrow the rest of it from family and friends, because Jeff and I really didn't have any money. But what we did was we believed in ourselves, and we believed in each other, and we had complete trust.
And you've seen each other in action in a format that had everything except revenue, right?
Right.
So I mean, you had you in a sense, you'd kind of test-driven your ability to work together and collaborate, and it's pretty cool. So you buy this business, and then I just have this incomplete history in my mind, because I've heard the story of Rocky Mountain Catastrophe, and then there is this kind of foggy period, and then you pop out the other side, and you are in business with Swiss Germans, and you're building the industry. Like, you have to feel it, like, so demystify this cloudy center here.
Well, along that journey, when Jeff and I bought Rocky Mountain Catastrophe, it had only done business in the state of Colorado. And in that year, which was 1996, Hurricane Fran hit Wilmington, North Carolina. And one of our adjuster customers said, I'm going to Wilmington, are you guys going? And I thought, are we going? We're in Colorado. And he said, in this business, you should follow the money. And I just remember thinking, he's right. We may have bought a restoration company in Colorado, and it's growing significantly, but he's an adjuster that knows us and trusts us, and he's going to Wilmington. Maybe we should as well. So we did, and we had success. Wow. So we came back from Wilmington and said, okay, we're going to do this again. And then through DKI, that organization we bought was a member of DKI. We met some other DKI members. The second acquisition we did, which was in the following year, was Phil Rosebrook's family company. So we brought Phil, his father who just passed away, Phil Sr., who's up in heaven now, an amazing man, and Phil Jr. We bought their business out in Oregon. So now we were in Rocky Mountain Catastrophe, and now we're in Oregon. There were 5 offices, and we renamed that company Pacific Catastrophe. So along that journey then, when the Red River flooded in Grand Forks, North Dakota, in later 1997, we then loaded up the trucks, went to North Dakota, and we ended up landing a number of commercial drying jobs. And that's when Munters, who back in the day, they were owned by a European company, They were the largest dehumidification. If you were going to get desiccants, it was through Munters. And they wanted to know why we're using a Greco. But their team came over to our trailer and they wanted to work with us. Well, Jeff and I were so impressed with them, we wanted to hire them. So we ended up finding a way to do that. So Jeff and I hired Teresa Williams and Robert Peets and Eddie Pecluda and Randy Lambert and a number of amazing, it was 8 people from Munters. And then we went to a Greco and signed an exclusive deal for their equipment. So now all of a sudden we had the ability to rent desiccants to all of DKI, because we were still members of DKI. We went to DKI to tell them how great this news was. They thought we should have done it under DKI instead of us. But Jeff and I are entrepreneurs. And
opportunistic.
And so then fast forward to 1999, from that $3.6 million starting point, which is where Rocky Mountain Cat was when we bought it from Jeff and Angela Steemack. In those 3 years of the Oregon acquisition, we acquired just the assets of an environmental company because they'd gone Chapter 7, so we hired 10 people in one day. Now we're doing in-plant work at Lockheed Martin in Colorado Springs. And then we bought a company in New York that it was just the phone number, but it was owned by MF Bank, and they had gone bankrupt. And this phone number had been written into a lot of disaster recovery plans. And then we had hired those people from Munters. And when then Belfor, which was only in Europe, but they had started in Switzerland in 1989 with George Schutte. And when George then, through the German family office, and that's where the money came from, was buying up market-leading restoration companies in most of the countries in Western Europe. So in France and England, Belgium, Spain, you think about that, is that Belfor was buying independent restoration companies and changing their name to Belfor. And all at the direction of George Schutte, who, if there is a Mount Rushmore of restoration, it shouldn't be my face on it, it should be George Schutte. He is the architect and the visionary of the Belfor brand, for example.
George Schutte.
And great guy, I'm still friends with him to this day. Is the board at Franz Haniel, the German family office, had said to Mr. Schutte, that's great you say you're the market leader, but look at the Swiss Re and the Munich Re statistics on insured values. There's more in North America than in Europe, so you can't really call yourselves the global leader till you go to North America. So we were one of 5 companies that was shortlisted, along with companies like BMS Cat, ATI, Inricon, somehow Little Rocky Mountain Cat. I think it was just, well, these young guys, Mark and Jeff, they're out in Denver, but they're making quite a splash. Maybe you should meet with them. So George Schutte and a couple other Europeans from Belfor International came to Denver. They met with us. We knew they were meeting with other people, and the other side of the story is, even though we were having this great success, I just want you to know, and all small business people know this, if you are growing at that rate, that growth eats cash. So we were making money on a P&L, and Jeff and I were constantly cutting our salaries to almost zero. Not quite where we're sleeping on the warehouse floor, but close. Okay, in that we cut every expense you can possibly imagine to afford the Teresa Williamses of the world and the other people so that we could grow the business. And so at the time that Belfor came, and through that process, they picked us, and they picked us to be their platform. We then sold 80% of Rocky Mountain Cat to Belfor, and in September of 1999, Jeff Johnson and I co-founded Belfor in North America. And then what the Germans did, they said, okay, we like to be either number 1 or number 2 in a market. So since we know you guys know how to do growth, and we know as members of DKI that you must know a lot of good operators, they gave us a committed capital fund of $400 million to then do mergers and acquisitions. So now I'm 30 years old.
And so if you adjust that to today's dollars, I mean that's a big part. I mean it's, I don't know, 475. That's almost $500 million. That's a lot of cash.
Well, it was, believe me.
That's a lot of Canadian dollars too.
$4 million at that time was a mind-boggling amount of cash, and they gave us a committed capital fund of $400 million.
That's a war chest.
So we bought market-leading companies in Dallas and Seattle and Detroit, and the one in Detroit required me to move there in order to do the deal. So that's how
rebranding as you went.
We rebranded every one of the companies we bought to Belfor. So between 1999 and 2004, when Jeff and I were doing this, that's how Belfor became the market leader through our key acquisitions, and we called it the NFL City model. With the exception of Green Bay, Wisconsin, we believed that if a city in the United States was large enough to have an NFL team, then there's enough demographic there for us to then go after a market leader in those markets. And so that's what our growth strategy was, really based as an NFL city market.
I've heard Gary Moore said the same with baseball teams.
Yep.
Yeah, so NFL, yeah.
And that's how I got to know Gary, was he was on the list. And so even though Belfor did not choose ATI as the platform, we then said, well, let's go out to Southern California and talk to Gary and see if that would make sense. And it didn't make sense for maybe Gary at that time, but we stayed friendly, and I'm very friendly with Jeff and Ryan, to this day.
An amazing business, yeah. So you go from Rocky Mountain, you become Belfor, you expand the brand, you move to Michigan, and then you decide to close that chapter, and then there's this period of time, and then you reemerge with this brand Signal.
Well, there's a step in between.
Okay.
So when I decided to sell, which was in 2004, a lot of people's like, well, what did you sell for? You bought, you wanted to be your own boss, and all I can say is that when you're experiencing growth, and if you're buying companies, I did learn how to buy companies, from a financial standpoint. But the thing that I think I learned the most was also how important culture is, and that you have to look under the hood, and it's not just about spreadsheets and overlap and synergies and markets. It's really all about the people, and it's all about the culture of those people. And so Jeff and I both found ourselves in a situation where the financial success was more than we ever imagined, and we were very humbled by that. And we loved the Germans, but we just found that we had maybe made a couple decisions that were inconsistent with our values and our vision. So we both decided to exit, fulfill our non-competes, and then when I re-entered partnering with a private equity firm, bought a company from ServiceMaster called Instar. So that was my re-entry point, and I was only there a couple of years, and we had a very good success during that time, but I only owned 17%. And cultures are driven top down, but I wasn't the majority owner, and if you're not the majority owner, you don't really get to drive the culture. So I said, okay, I learned a ton there, but that's not what I really wanted, and I didn't have a 50-50 partner, and I missed Jeff Johnson. And so Jeff was not available. He'd gone out and got into some business, but I found my other Jeff Johnson, and that's Frank Torrey. And so that's where Frank and I came together and said, I got him on the board of Instar. And then when I decided to leave and sell my 17% shares, I said, Frank, why don't we do this together? And why don't we find our next Rocky Mountain catastrophe? That's what we did. We then went and found Signal. And so Signal, it was called Signal Building Company. It was exactly what we wanted. We wanted another platform like what Rocky Mountain catastrophe was. So Frank and I became 50-50 partners, bought Signal together, and Signal was doing $9 million a year in revenue and making just under $1 million a year. And the owners, husband and wife, amazing people, Chris and Barb Amon, but they had never done business outside of the state of Michigan, similar to Rocky Mountain Cat. And remember that first year when I said that the adjuster said you should follow the money to Wilmington, North Carolina? I believe there's a lot of theories about success, but one of them is success is the intersection point between planning and opportunity. If the opportunity's coming by, but if you're not planning, you're gonna miss it. Okay, so you gotta be planning, and then the opportunities will come. Well, we bought Signal right after my non-compete expired, and within a few months of that, Superstorm Sandy hit New York. My cell phone rings. Can you please pump out the basement at Coney Island Hospital? That phone call of asking us if we could pump out the basement at Coney Island Hospital in Brooklyn, that one job ended up being $133 million. Now I know that that's not normal in restoration, and even coming from starting Belfor, I'd never seen anything like that at Belfor. The only reason Signal was able to do it is when we bought it in June of 2012, the first thing we did was hire 8 operations people outside of the state of Michigan that knew how to do commercial large loss. And that was from my previous experience. And it was because I knew that Frank and I were going to go sell jobs like that, not 130, meaning commercial jobs outside the state of Michigan. We needed the right team because you're only as good as your last job. So we needed to make sure that we knew we could sell. We needed to make sure that we could deliver on the operation side. So you talk about serendipitously how that phone call turned into, in 10 months, we did a $133 million job, that little company doing $9 million, recapitalized our company, made a significant amount of profit, collected every penny. We also helped the city of New York by, we referred them to a FEMA consultant expert because the hospitals, ended up doing 5 of them were uninsured. And then through our recommendation of a Detroit resource that we had a really good relationship with, that resource moved to New York, worked for the city of New York, and got them a 98% reimbursement from FEMA on their spend.
Wow. Yeah.
So everyone was happy. Signal comes back, and now Frank and I say to ourselves, okay, we did this so we could have boardroom control. We did not want to have private equity, and yet now we've had this significant financial impact to our business. Are we going to do mergers and acquisitions to get more distribution, which is really what you need to do, more commercial losses, or should we franchise it? Now, I didn't know anything about franchising, but I knew who did, and that's Wayne Wadika, the founder of CRDN. The founder of CRDN started it from scratch, and he happens to be a close personal friend of mine for a long time. So we called up Wayne, we met with him, and we said, Wayne, what do you think? We think we'd like to franchise Signal. And he said, well, I know both of you, and I think that you're too impatient and that's going to take too much time, because I've done it, and I know what it takes, and I'm not saying you can't do it, but I know how fast you guys like to move. I think you should buy a franchise system, and I think you should look down, here you have ServPro, ServiceMaster, you have the list. Kind of at the bottom of the list is PuroClean at that time, in 2015.
Yeah.
He said, but I think it's the right time. I think you guys are the right answer. I'll make an introduction. So Wayne made an introduction, and we took it from there.
Wow.
So then we ended up acquiring PuroClean in September of 2015. Now at that time, PuroClean had roughly over 200 units.
Yeah.
There were no national accounts. There were a number of franchisees looking to leave the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were 4 shareholders, very successful men, very competent. They were great, but they weren't necessarily getting along, and they'd all been successful in other businesses, and it wasn't really a main focus.
Yeah.
So Frank and I made them an offer that included, we only bought 80% to start with because we wanted them to have the opportunity to grow with us with that 20% minority stake. And that worked. So we, after just 5 months, we met them and we closed in 5 months.
Wow, 5 months.
And then Frank and I made a commitment. We went to every regional meeting that October, the very next month, to meet with as many of our PuroClean, we call them franchise owners, as possible, to say, here's who we are. You don't know us, but we are operators in restoration and in landscaping. Frank's been very successful in landscaping in his first career. And we know service businesses, but we want you to know we're going to roll our sleeves up. We own another operating company called Signal. It's in the same space. So we know what you're experiencing on a daily basis with issues with labor and collections and pay cycle times and all those things. But we also are going to make a commitment that we're not going to take a penny of distribution for the first 2 years, and we're going to invest every penny back into this brand. We went 5 years on that promise without taking a distribution and reinvesting every penny, including this flood house you see behind us, which we renovated and increased the technology on.
It's amazing space.
We created an online training academy where not only were the courses now accessible with your iPad or your iPhone, so franchise owners and their new hires and their technicians could go through training. We had the majority of those courses also in Spanish. So now you're able to go through training in English and in Spanish online from your iPad, from your iPhone. And it was all about a culture also of one where we were not, our plan, and it still is the plan, not to be the biggest. We know who's at the top of our category, and that's great with size. We certainly are growing, and we've been growing, very, very well the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But our plan is to not be the biggest. We believe our real sweet spot is that PuroClean has larger territories than our franchise competitors. And I don't know how else to say it. We don't sell franchises. The company used to. We award them. And what I mean by that is we're not trying to, for example, sell 40 franchises in 2026. What we're looking for is the right kind of candidates. We call them enterprise builders, where, give you an example, we had no franchise owners that owned more than one location when we bought the business. Today, there are 64 franchise owners that own multiple locations.
Because you've gone from, you and Frank get involved, 200 locations. Today, fast forward 10 years, 520? 520 dots on the map?
As of today.
More than 100%, I mean, well over 100% growth. And then you have within that as well, I mean, in the tapestry that is all that growth, multi-location operators, you don't go back and purchase another dot on the map if you're not confident in the brand, the support, the trajectory, but you also have a really admirable commitment to the whole veteran community. So you were sharing some math with me around how your numbers are more than double the population averages. Tell me a little about that.
Well, my source is ChatGPT, but when I went to ChatGPT, because I know that 15% of our franchise owners in the United States are veterans.
Yeah.
And when I say within the United States, because we have 62 amazing franchise owners in Canada. But in the United States, where we have roughly 460 franchise owners, 15% of those are veterans, and yet in the U.S. population, 6%, according to ChatGPT, are veterans. So we do have a significant focus on veterans, and part of it is when you are in the military and you've got structure and you've got systems and you've got protocols, you're required to follow those because you're in the military. You take a vow. But for those that then buy a franchise, they're not required to. It's an independent business owner. They can make the decision of how they want to run it. But we have a playbook. We have a proven system. And it's no mistake, it's not an accident that our most successful PuroClean franchise owners, and we're very happy to say we have hundreds of very successful franchise owners. But those most successful are the ones that follow the playbook. And so it's a great transition from being a veteran and having a set of guidelines and SOPs to follow, to then go into transition into a franchise system, follow our playbook that can lead to success. There's no guarantee, but it certainly is a significant increase in the likelihood of success.
I think about, like you said earlier, you and Jeff, in a sense, honed your skills in a non-commerce, non-business type environment, expanding this fraternity, and then you land with those skills in Denver, you purchase this business, and now you have an outlet for everything you've established. It must be very similar for your veterans in the sense that they've honed these skills, these mindsets, these approaches to doing things in an orderly fashion, and then they partner with your brand, and now they have a way of using all those skills, habits, mindsets in a very economical way that creates a lot of opportunity for their family. Is that fair?
That's fair. It's also fair, though, for those that are not veterans, but that, let's say, have been successful in another industry.
Right.
And they retire or they choose to pivot and want to be their own boss and entrepreneurial. It's interesting because if someone is, how people are usually drawn to do activities that make them feel good or that they're good at.
Sure.
Well, not everybody's good at sales, but one thing about if you're going to get in restoration and you're going to do from a startup, like a franchise, for example, is you have to know how to sell or hustle. And if that isn't something you like to do, we train people right away in our playbook. If that's not something you want to do as an owner, then please hire that business development rep or two right away. So maybe somebody's an engineer and they prefer more of the operations component, whatever that might be. That's why I always say the yin and the yang. Even though Frank Torrey knows how to sell, he's really good at operations. Okay, and even though Jeff Johnson knows how to sell, he's really good at operations. And so I don't think I'm very good at operations, okay? And I'm not afraid to say it. But I do know a little bit about how to sell and also how to motivate people, how to recruit people, and how to inspire. And I think we talked about the inspiration.
So let's talk about that last part there. So I have the advantage of working with a lot of the brands, and each brand has its own distinct characteristics. It's very easy to spend time with each brand and say, okay, I know why you're successful. When I spend time with your brand, two things are just like super clear. One, PuroClean on the move is not a bumper sticker. There is a united, arms locked together mentality that this brand is really moving, and I don't say that like whimsically. Like, I mean, I feel it when I spend time with your team. Everyone is locked in. Like, it's you think you're going to look around and there'll be some supervisor watching them, and there's no one there. They are personally really plugged in. And then the other thing that I see is a lot of talent density. Like, you have really pulled together a very high quality management team. I've spent time with Steve, I've spent time with Nick and Al, all these groups. I mean, so tell us a little bit of that. Like, right now in the market, I think that there's a lot of pressure to perhaps think about your team as a heavy line on a P&L, and yet there's so much talent. How have you assembled such a talented team?
It's a team effort. So that's not me, that's not Frank by ourselves. We got lucky, and I do believe in luck. Now, I also believe entrepreneurs, the harder they work, the luckier they get.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can create your own luck. But we've had good fortune along the way. And one of those really good fortunate scenarios is we inherited a president named Steve White.
Yeah.
And we didn't know Steve. And the brand wasn't doing well when we bought it. It was still making money, but not much. So we gave Steve a 1-year contract. Let's just see what we think here. Now, this is 10 years later. Steve is still our president. He resurrected the brand. He wasn't given the financial resources to do that before we arrived. Once we arrived, we said, Steve, tell us what you need. Most likely, we're not going to say no, and we're going to reinvent this brand together. And Steve, again, a former Army captain, back to that veteran mentality, chain of command, discipline, but always of respect, honesty, integrity. He attracted great talent. And then as we started to grow and not sell franchises, but as we started to award franchises, and then as we started to land national accounts, we had no national accounts when we bought the company. Now we have 3 of the top 5 carriers and a number of other regional carriers and property managers and that sort of thing. So as the momentum was going and going, people were like, oh, I never even thought of PuroClean. The people started thinking of us. And then we hit, the 250 mark, then we hit 300, then we hit 350, but it wasn't about just the size. It was our franchise owners were elevating, one of my other favorite verbs in the world is elevating their own market presence in their market. So the concept of PuroClean on the move was not true when it was not on the move forward when we bought it. But we subscribe to the theory of anything you can conceive and believe you can achieve, from Zig Ziglar. Frank and I believed that PuroClean could be on the move. So what a better way to get it on the move is to say PuroClean is on the move. And then, not that I go to dog tracks, I don't, but I'm just going to use the analogy of what Frank and I have always done at Signal and at PuroClean, is that if you think about what makes the greyhounds run faster at the dog track, they're chasing a white rabbit. So Frank and I are like, if we're going to be on the move, Signal on the move and PuroClean on the move, is we're going to be the white rabbits, and we're going to move at a pace that will elevate the pace of the brand and inspire others to maybe see, what's this about? Okay, and so that's, again, how cultures are driven top down, is that Frank and I at Signal, and we have an amazing team at Signal. It is not the Mark and Frank show. Those people we hired, Alan and Brian and then Dan along the way, are so market leading. When it comes to commercial large loss, and I'll say this humbly because it's not me, the team at Signal is by far the best in commercial restoration in the world. I can say that having started Belfor here and seen what we put together across continents.
With a lot of experience. I think I don't know if you're comfortable sharing it, but someone once gave me a number of, I like revenue efficiency numbers based on workforce as just a reflection of overall workforce productivity, and they gave me a number that was like the average revenue per employee at Signal, and I was like, that can't be a real number.
1.5 million.
Yes, it was a number, like, it was lower than that actually, the number they gave me. I was like, what? Because one of the benchmark reports we write with RIA is the financial report, the cost of doing business, and so we track, and I mean that's, I don't know, 11 times higher than the average. So,
Signal's a very special company, and it's different than anything I've ever seen anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, we don't do residential, and we don't do smaller commercial jobs. Now that can there's challenges with that.
Yeah.
2025 was a very difficult year for the industry,
Yeah.
for all of us.
Yeah.
There isn't anyone that I know that was immune
I
to
can't think of
the
anybody.
challenges in the marketplace of property restoration in 2025. So that includes Signal, PuroClean. At PuroClean, we've been having double-digit growth for the first 9 years, and then we were flat. To be flat in 2025, although not at all what we've been doing at this trajectory, we thought was a great success because we know that the overall market was down kind of mid-20s. And at Signal, we do large jobs, and you can't always count on there being a large job. But I learned this from the Germans. We do this for sure at Signal, not so much at PuroClean, but I'll explain why in a minute. But we keep our overheads as low as we possibly can. Okay, and so you need to be able to do that in order to handle the volatility on the top line. But you know, when I mentioned that we did that $130 million job in our first year with the City of New York, our client was the City of New York. We did it again 5 years later in Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico?
Yeah, our client was Hilton Hotels in Blackstone, and we did another $130 million job, and now we're doing a $100 million job right now in the state of New York. I cannot mention the client, it's confidentiality based, and we've done 12 jobs over 50 million. And so the only reason I say that is it's extremely rare in restoration, but our operations team is known as being not only just the best, but it's also about the accounting and the reporting and the accuracy and timeliness of your accounting.
You know one thing, Mark, and I've had the opportunity to go to, I wish one time I could like take franchise leaders and they could come with me to all the other franchise conferences, because obviously you'd never go to another franchise brands conference. Like it'd be, you know, who would let you in the door? But you see the culture, and one of the things that is not uncommon is when when leadership takes the stage and they're saying their remarks. Sometimes you'll see in the audience people kind of check out, or they'll check their phone or whatnot, because they just say all these kind of corporate-y things. I've noticed on a couple times now when you get on the stage, you have a very captive audience, and I think because a lot of your franchisees, the vibe that I get is they respect that you are you're been there, done that guy, and you're in it currently guy. I'd love for you to share how you would describe the vision of PuroClean. Oftentimes I think of vision as like where we're going, and then the mission is like how we're going to get there.
Yeah, it's very simple. We keep it very simple. Okay, PuroClean's vision is to be involved in the communities in the United States and Canada and Puerto Rico. So that's kind of our domain, and that our franchise owners immerse themselves into their communities and become part of the community, so that when any part of that community needs help, we are there, whether it be residential, whether it be commercial or municipal, is that we ingrain ourselves in the community. So even though we are a global brand and an international brand, it is all about the local grassroots. And so from that standpoint that's why we are selecting we award our franchise owners, we don't sell them, because we are on the move and we're building a culture, and we're not building it for sale. This is not a culture that is or a company that is being built for sale. Nothing against those that are being built for sale. That's capitalism, and we're all about capitalism. But we have a different mission here. And our mission is to build a brand, a world-class brand, that it is defined by the service and the quality and the integrity of the people delivering that service. And so we're very deliberate about it. We do not look at our profits from a quarterly basis and say, okay, we need more next quarter. We do not sit down with our executive team and say, we need to hit this budget or there's going to be cuts. We never, ever in 10 years have said to Steve White, we need you to cut this because we are over budget here. It doesn't happen, because if we believe that expense is helping us achieve this vision of building a world-class brand in the communities of North America with the right people, with respect, integrity, and compassion, then Frank and I, we say to ourselves, since we're the only two shareholders, okay, and we don't have to report to anybody else and we don't have to distribute to anybody else, we are going to continue to invest in our vision. And that is, I think, the difference. And nothing against the other brands. We love this ecosystem we're in, and we respect a lot of these other brands. But there is no question about our main differentiator from our competitors is we don't have outside investment, and we have no pressure for a return on investment, and we are pouring everything we can back into the business. And again, I can't even how else to say it. We could be bigger than we are now. We're not choosing that growth trajectory. We're choosing a pace of growth that is consistent with our vision and our mission.
Well, a person could say, well, it's still Tang. You're like, well, I mean, you've watered it down so much, it barely tastes like anything, right? And so what you're saying is, no, we're going to respect. There's a flavor that we have a vision for. There's a flavor we're accustomed to. There's a flavor our franchisees appreciate, and we're not diluting it, right? And so that
goes back to the elevate. We love that verb elevate, where we elevate our expectations of ourselves from a leadership standpoint here at PuroClean headquarters, but that becomes a natural expectation for our franchise owners to elevate their own expectations of themselves. And then when cultures are driven top down like that, then that means that the people in their individual organizations tend to want to elevate their performance as we're all together building a world-class brand. And we're not there. We've had some success, and we don't look in the rearview mirror and talk about it because we have a lot more to do. And so as we look, even KnowHow being a part of that, honestly, is that when we thought of innovative ways that we can stay ahead of the marketplace, if we're going to be world-class, we can't just rely on what was working yesterday, okay? We pay attention to what happened in the past simply so we can learn from it, but we don't, if we look at any of our success or milestones, that's yesterday's news, and we don't read our headlines. It is, what else can we be doing for our franchise owners, okay? And when it came to AI, it was like, okay, we'd heard of KnowHow, and quite frankly, I met you in Canada, and even within our own culture here at our own company at PuroClean, it seems to be the Canadians, God bless them, I love them so much, they are a little more innovative, and they seem to be a step or two sometimes ahead of us in the States. And that's okay, because guess what, we're together. And so when Jason Reese said, hey Mark, he's the president, CEO of PuroClean Canada, when he said, hey Mark, we're gonna pilot KnowHow in Canada, and we're gonna do that, and I'm like, great, because I'd met you in Canada, and it's like, okay. And when he called me 90 days later, and I said, how did it go? And all he said was, I can't tell you what to do, Mark. All I can tell you is we have a unanimous consent amongst our franchise owners in Canada, and it is, and I don't use this term often, it is a game changer. So then we decided to do our pilot, as you know, our entry into AI. Okay, through KnowHow, specifically customized in the industry for us. And we expected a rollout of 200 people, and I think we're at 400 in a very short period of time, and it's a
great momentum.
Shocking momentum. And why is that? We don't force that on anyone, okay? Remember, we're a franchise system. Each one of our owners is an individually owned franchise. They get to make their own decisions. We recommend, we suggest, we pilot, and it's such a incredible value play that's why we've had the success that we've had.
Well, did I ever tell you, so I was a franchisee, and then I was a franchisor back in the day. And it's so I had started, it's interesting, I had started a kind of a small service company, and then it wasn't until I became a franchise owner that now I had structure. I had like a structure. It's like, and I had structure, but I also had a peer group. So I went from like no structure, trying to invent the wheel, to structure, the wheel's been invented, and now I had running mates, right? So I had peers to say, well, that's possible, and so having come from that heritage, that's some of the genesis of KnowHow is, at the end of the day, multi-location service providers. What we say is when you have, centralized strategy, distributed execution, and you have, and so our mission at KnowHow is, our mission is to help our customers, in this case you, to deliver what you promise through confident workforces. And what we believe is that for all these factors, the market, the workforce, capital, it is becoming more and more difficult to keep your promises. When you look across the table to a carrier partner, national partner, state of New York, whatever, to say, yeah, but for these reasons, you got to give us some slack. We couldn't keep that promise. And what we believe is that actually the companies that figure out how to keep the promises, and part of that is you have to have very confident workforces. And to me, I can't explain it, but someone tells me to meet me at this spot somewhere I've never been, and I hop in my truck, and if someone was to ask me, like, do you know where you're going? You've never even been there, right? So I got this Google app, and it's giving me this strange confidence that I will get there. And so we have a very similar vision to say, you know, hey, we all aspire to provide great training, great support, great mentorship, but in the hustle and bustle of business, the reality is that sometimes we like to say you leave some in the Swiss cheese that is sometimes workforce training. You leave some gaps, and so how does that worker move on to that site and feel confident that whatever comes my way, PuroClean has given me the tools, and we're very passionate about that. So on passion, I want to talk a little bit about leaders today. So if I stuck a thermometer in many of the businesses in this industry in restoration, a lot of industry leaders are feeling very rattled right now, and they are rattled for good reason. Accounts receivable levels are out of control. Just debt to overall cash position is at an alarming position right now. Time to payment is getting out of control in the industry. Cash flow is a crisis would probably be an understatement. There's a lot of leaders in this industry. I was talking to one of our clients who was the belle of the ball in his state, and he called me and he said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I've had to cut 70% of my workforce just to stay in business. And you could tell that it was very difficult for him to say that. So you have been in this industry for longer than many of the leaders that are experiencing this storm. I wonder, how would you encourage a leader to navigate first themselves and then their team, like in this period of time? And do you have any examples you can draw from of similar, periods of time that the industry went through?
Yes, the first thing, and this is a phone call that I'm not only receiving on a weekly basis, more often than once a week. We're not immune to it ourselves, even at Signal or at PuroClean. So I want you to know, I would first say to any restorer, you are not alone. Okay, this is a market-driven time frame.
Right.
And yet having a 3-decade perspective, I can tell you it has been quiet before. I don't recall it being this quiet, but at the same time, it always turns. And then when it turns, your memory becomes a little foggy and distant about those times. But these are tough times, and these are the times when every owner, whether it be an independent franchise, even a large PE-backed, you need to look at your organization and say, where can we cut? Now, I'm not talking about cutting people, because that's we're a service business, and it's very, but you may have to cut people, but are there other areas you can cut? Unfortunately, training ends up being one of those, or even memberships into things. Do you go to PLRB? Do you participate at RIA? Do you do those sort of things? And yet those are so critically important that it's very difficult, because most people aren't operating on a lot of fat anyway. And so then it becomes, but you have to make some tough decisions. You have no choice. And why? Because you as an owner, you have a fiduciary responsibility to you, your partners, and your family, and the families of your partners. Okay, that is just as important as the responsibility that each owner carries on their shoulders of their team members, their employees, and their families. So that's something I've always been horrible at terminations. That's just something it's not something I'm good at. It's not something I like to do.
You probably don't aspire to be good at it.
I don't aspire to be good at it. I'm an eternal optimist. I always believe that the sun's coming up brighter the next day, and sometimes it takes not the next day and maybe not even the next week or month, but the sun is going to come up brighter. And so, what I say to people is it's tough. You got to tighten your belt, and you do have to make tough decisions. You got to start with yourself, all right? Because you can't ask people to do something you're not willing to do. So I can tell you right now, as far as stories go along the way, you already heard me say that Jeff Johnson and I cut our salaries significantly. I mean, down to almost nothing to be able to sustain Rocky Mountain Cat at the time. Even at Signal now, Frank Torrey and I have made significant cuts. We are not immune to it. We've cut back on a number of things. Some were luxuries that we've cut out. Others were important but not essential. And that's a very difficult exercise to go down essential versus non-essential, but in a tough time, it's something you really need to do. And you have to do it as a fiduciary, again, to either your business partners, yourself, and your family. But it will pivot. It will pivot. Now, what's interesting about the last 18 months and this downturn that we've had, and I'm a very insurance-friendly contractor. I always have been. I know there are some contractors that kind of view the insurance company as the bad guy. I've never viewed that way because, people will say on one level, well, insurance companies aren't loyal, people are. That's true, but there's good people at insurance companies, okay? And those are the ones you need to find. Now, of course, they've got shareholders and all that, but at the end of the day, everyone's just doing their job, okay? So in essence, if you feel some heat coming from the carrier side, and we all do, or the building consultant, then that's where, back to innovation. Okay, well then what can we do to innovate, to pivot, to find our ways to be more efficient, okay, while they can still achieve their objectives? Is that, it's interesting because the margins in this business, we definitely feel margin pressure. And I mentioned earlier about, I learned from the Germans about keeping your fixed costs down. And it's a very difficult equation, and yet what will happen, and I think it'll be this year, but I don't have a crystal ball, is that there will be a significant change on supply and demand. Okay, there hasn't been the case in the last 18 months, and so now there's been more pressure on contractors to reduce prices and margin erosion, and the issue of overhead and profit is such a myth. 10 and 10 is not enough. There isn't a restoration company that I know of, and I know the P&L of, let's say, 600 companies. And being on the RA board, you get access to more, and owning a franchise system, is there isn't a restoration company anywhere in the US or Canada that could survive on 10% overhead and 10% profit. And so when the carriers decide they want to try to attack that, is like, are you kidding me? You want to have an industry where you will not have professional service? Because a lot of good operators, if that were to be the continue, would eventually leave and go into other businesses, okay? That could be happening now, but I still believe the tide will turn here and the supply and demand will invert again. Right now, supply's up here and demand's down here. That will shift, and when it shifts again, okay, and it's normal in any business to have those shifts in supply and demand, it will dramatically impact again in a positive way the restoration space. And so I believe that. It isn't just my eternal optimism. I have a 30-year experience in this industry of seeing it. Maybe not as dramatic as we've seen the last 18 months, but hustle is one of my favorite verbs, if you will.
Well, you talked about, I want to make sure we have some time to talk about something you're also very passionate about, the Restoration Industry Association. You're very passionate about that. But many leaders right now, especially the leaders of some of the brands that are some of the iconic brands, I think there's two things that they're trying to navigate right now. The first one is, I don't want to micromanage my team. I need to lead through them, but I feel like I need to roll up my sleeves right now. Like I feel like I'm in a bit of a wartime. So I'm curious, I'd love to hear two things before we shift gears. One is, I've seen you in action. I remember when we were in at your conference in the Maritimes, and you and I were trying to find time to sit down, and yet every moment you're on your phone connecting franchisees with jobs. We were in the middle of a hurricane. I think that was Hurricane Helene, right? And so you were like in it, and I remember witnessing. I'm like, wow, Mark is a roll up his sleeves leader, And I think that the merge call feature was like your power feature that
I use it multiple times a
you
day.
just kept merging people in, and you're like an opportunity, love connector, right? And so how do leaders in this market, in this period of time, how should they balance trust your team versus get in the ring? Like how do you?
Oh, you have to do both. I said before, I believe anyway, as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
that you cannot ask of those on your team which you are not willing to do.
Sure.
And everyone is always watching what you're doing,
Yep.
no matter what. Even if you try to hide, the reality of it is people know what you're doing. And they care about what you're doing as the leader or as the owner, whether you're the owner or the leader, whatever it might be. Is that in micromanagement, it's very tough, because if you've hired talented people, they don't want to be micromanaged.
No.
Okay, and so getting in the trenches with them, which I never got out of the trenches, but at the end of the day, going back or deeper into the trenches and rolling the sleeves up, and also making some sacrifices. When I said, like before, some comforts, some creature comforts, whatever that might be, people know what those are. I can tell you, Frank and I have already made some of those decisions. We're making some other ones. We are leading by example there. Okay. At PuroClean, like I've said, we still have not said no to Frank or to Steve White. And the reason is that, again, with the benefit of 520 franchisees paying us a royalty every month, and our thought is, Frank and I are not, again, we're not trying to return this investment to shareholders or that sort of thing. So we continue our investment into PuroClean even during a time when we are not experiencing the kind of the growth trajectory. So the message we're sending to our franchise owners is, we know times are tough, but we are digging in and we're continuing to invest.
And we'll talk about, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time at the end of our conversation to talk about because you have a very long-term perspective on this industry. We talked about even your own timelines, right? I think if a person understood your timeline and the way and the timelines you think about growing this brand, I think your decisions all of a sudden seem seems like it's very easy for a leader to make a short-sighted decision today, but if we zoom up, I think people would say, Mark and Frank are making decisions because, look at how much runway they are envisioning ahead of them right now in terms of their careers. But let's talk about the RIA. So the Restoration Industry Association, largest association within the industry. I think it's on a tremendous growth trajectory right now. Why are you passionate about it, and why do you think that it's an important time for people to get involved in the association?
Well, when I think about what the RIA provides to, for example, the independent restorer, okay, to me, it would be one of the last things I would cut, okay, when in a downtime, because what does the RIA provide? It provides connectivity, okay, to other like-minded restorers, like mini independents, or if you're a franchise, like-minded franchise, or if you're a PE owned or whatever it might be, so that when we come together, whether it be an online training or whether it be our convention or some of these regional conventions, training is always an important part of this. It's our government advocacy. It's understanding what's coming from the carrier standpoint. Is that when you think about also ideas and networking is, well, what's another way to cut costs, or how can we get a better deal from suppliers? The RIA has already gone out and negotiated the best possible pricing with the majority of vendors that a restorer uses. We can prove in a very simple mathematical equation that joining the RIA, even if you weren't to participate in anything except the vendor programs, pays for itself by a multiple of your discount on Xactimate, your discount on a Ramsco, your discount on Blunt. You can go down the list of all the various things, whether it be Lowe's or those sort of things. Is wow. So if I joined the RIA and I bought this service through here or there, it's incredible how much value would create for. And so that's the aha. And then you throw on the networking. So now I'm going to meet people in my state, in my county, but maybe in other parts of the country that are facing the same thing. And here's how they handled it. That networking, I call it, better leaders through networking and idea exchange. And that's what the RA provides, is better leaders through the networking, the training, and the idea exchange. To me, it's priceless.
And what I would say is anybody going through a difficult period of time, I think that the natural inclination is I need to kind of, in a sense, go internal, but anybody who said, hey, how would you advise your friend who's going through a difficult time? They would say, you need to be around people that understand what you're going through. And I've been able to participate in a number of restoration industry events through the RIA. And you check in with that person, and then you see them at the end and say, how was the event? Typically they'll say, I had so many great conversations with individuals who, I can't really talk to the guy across the street from me because, we might be a little bit too close. But hey, I'm in the Northwest, I'm talking to this guy in the Southeast, and we've been able to exchange. There's, some people in different states. I don't feel that same.
Yeah, it's a non-competitive environment.
Yeah, and there's a peership that I think, there's a unique conversation that happens when someone looks at you and says, I get it, I get it, and here's how we're dealing with it, or here's how it's showing up in my business.
And I believe not only is it incredibly valuable, but like anything else in life though, you'll get out of something what you put into it. If you just join the RIA, just for the benefits of the vendor programs, it will be a good financial investment. But that's not the only reason to join. The reason to join is, like we mentioned, engage. And not only with the restorers, is that it's introduction to carriers, and it's understanding through building consultants what is going on in the industry, the knowledge that can help you there. And then we are working on an initiative that I am extremely passionate about at the RIA, which is our Code of Ethics.
Right.
Where we are working in a carrier relations task force, where involving, leaders from the insurance industry, along with leaders from the restoration industry, to co-develop, in essence, the definition of what does it mean to be an ethical restorer. And so, if you think about that, I was like, well, what is that? Well, think about it. What is one of the biggest issues that restorers face? It's this gap, this lack of trust that the carriers, that the insurance companies have with restorers. Unfortunately, because there's always been pirates and cowboys in the restoration space since I've been in the industry, they unfortunately create a misperception among the insurance carriers that, not all, I don't think they think all are, but the stereotype that many restorers could be pirates and cowboys. We want to do everything we can, to distance ourselves from pirates and cowboys, to define what it means to be an ethical restorer, to provide training to our RA members, and then eventually have the vision that in order to even be or qualify to be an RA member, you have to have gone through the training and be certified as an ethical restorer. That's the ultimate vision. And that will help just over time. It will weed out some of those that don't want to play in that arena. And I'm not talking about placating to the insurance companies at all. Is that we're a majority, at RA, we are a majority of independents. And of the majority of those independent members of the RA, many of them do not do direct insurance program work. Is that look, I happen to believe in the direct insurance program work, but a lot of the work that I do is not direct as well, so I'm a hybrid. I do both. But we don't, even at PuroClean, we don't say to our PuroClean franchise owners, you need to do insurance work. We have these large programs, but we still only have 50% participation even within PuroClean on the insurance side. So that means 50% of my franchise owners who I serve them, they are working not directly for the insurance companies. I serve the members of the RA by being on the board. And I serve them equally, those that do the insurance work and those that don't. But I know that this initiative on the Code of Ethics and defining an ethical restorer is going to elevate, rising tide raises all ships. It's going to elevate, the industry in the eyes of the insurance company. It's going to not happen overnight. This is a movement, it's a process, it's going to take a long time. And it's not going to finish by saying, this is going to be an ongoing, ethics is now going to be part of our ecosystem and part of our culture and part of our entire being as an RA going forward.
And I think about some of the efforts, I'm familiar with quite a few of the initiatives that the RA has, and Elevate comes to mind, but also professionalize. I think when I talk to contractors in the industry and I say, what are the things that sometimes drive you crazy? And typically they'll say, well, it frustrates me when certain, say, legislators, different stakeholders in the market, they don't understand the complexity of my industry and the differentiating factor that we've had to do so much training and certification with our staff, and they'll use the word professional. We're a professional organization, and sometimes we're not always perceived that way. And when I think about a professional organization, like, what causes me to feel comfortable around, I don't know, a medical professional? Well, they have a code. They have a code that they abide by. And I think what you're talking about is a code of ethics that people will abide by. And I think it's part of an effort to, something that's already present is these restorers carry themselves professionally, but I think it allows them to point to something external to say, I abide by that. And so, if you need something to shore up your confidence, that's something that me and my team have committed to. Do you see it that way?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. So right now, many leaders, just to kind of close the topic of RA, but many leaders currently that aren't engaged in the Restoration Industry Association, I think that for them, they probably need a sense, like a bit of a picture in terms of like, well, what is my team going to come back with that they didn't have before they went with? Mm-hmm. And so you've talked about, there's some connection. There's obviously training. There's education. Is there anything further, Mark, that you would speak to when you think about just the value proposition of being part of an association of fellow restorers? Is there anything else you would point to?
Yes, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but at any time, leadership of any restorer should be looking at where's the innovation,
right?
Where's the efficiency? But no time is more important than in a quiet time. Because at the end of the day, you have more time. Even though you're not happy about it, you have more time, you're not as busy. Is that you may not have as much cash flow at that time, but it is that innovation that could help you overcome once this, and certainly be even more successful once the supply and demand changes again, like we know it will at some point. When you come to the RIA convention, your eyes will be wide open to all the different innovation that is happening, and certainly AI. You can't stay in your local market, whether that be Paducah, Kentucky, or Cheney, Washington, or Houston, Texas, and say, I'm just going to stay here, do my research on ChatGPT or whatever it might be. Go to the RIA convention, engage. You will not believe what you'll be able to take away and learn. And the learning doesn't end there. You will have then networked. And then as you network, like you said, it won't be the person across the street that you're competing for that same amount of market share. You'll meet others. Okay, and that's just how it evolves and happens, and we have it set up that way with social events and other things where there is the interactivity where we promote that as well. And so, again, that's just one of those things. We at the RA, we're already worried about having a sold out convention, and so it's not like we're trying to get more people. We seem to have more people every year because we are adding more value. Okay. So even in a quiet year like this, we expect to have record attendance in Savannah. But part of it is because of the vendors that are coming, the innovation and technology of where the industry is going, okay, and just I don't know how else to explain it. I've already kind of mentioned several factors about it, but I think to myself, and I am, again, I can relate because I've been at every stage over the last 30 years, and I'm not immune to any of it now. Even though I'm on the board and I'm going, it's not like there's not something I'm going to learn. I never stop learning. Just having met you and learning what I've learned through KnowHow, it has enhanced my toolbox. And any owner or any leader of any company, okay, any restoration company, it's all about your toolbox and how do you enhance the tools in your toolbox to make you a better leader.
And to build on what you're saying, I think you would agree with this, is that you've talked a lot about the investments that you've made in your team, the investments you've made in helping people get on side with a vision. One of the things that I've seen has had tremendous return on investment is a local independent operator who perhaps themselves has maybe gone to some industry events. They have an awareness of how big this industry is. They've seen individuals like you speak on stage. They've heard other leaders kind of speak on stage. And so they know how big the industry is. But when they bring 2 or 3 of their up and coming leaders to the industry association, you see it every time. You say, so hey, how was your first RIA conference? And they're like, they'll typically say, I had no idea the industry was so big, so professional. I had no idea how much innovation, like walking in the expo. And one of the hardest things as a leader is just for your staff to see what you see, and when they come back, I think that to me, like, what better investment than those team members coming back and infusing your team with what they saw at the top of the mountain, so to speak, right? And I bet you've seen that in your organization, because you guys always take a pretty big contingent, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll have another one this year. Again, that's because the learning never ends. And we're always learning. And that expo hall and the vendors, look, at the end of the day, their motivation is to provide value through technology, innovation, and enhancement. And so we're there to learn what are those next opportunities, if you will, to innovate and become more efficient.
So Mark, to bring this discussion to a close, I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, and you've had 30 years of impact, and one thing you shared with me is you're not slowing down, right? You went so far as to say, I'm not planning to retire, right? Like, so you're in the story that is Mark Davis, we're really probably just in the middle of it right now.
I think so, yeah.
So
I'm 58, and my dad's 93. He sold his tiny law practice. When I say tiny law, he was the only lawyer. But he sold it because he had estate planning, and he had a number of estates. And he sold it when he was 85. He's 93, and he's still upset that he sold it at 85. And so all I can tell you is that when you love what you do, and you know that it matters, and you're making impact, nothing can be more fun. So I'm having so much fun. I love this industry, and we get to change lives literally every day.
So there will come a day where you'll look back on your career. What do you want your legacy to be in this industry?
There's no question that I hope that my legacy is that I was a part of a team that helped hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs and families get into restoration and fulfill their dreams for their families, and to have successful business enterprises. So if my legacy can be that I was part of a team that helped hundreds of families achieve that would be really amazing.
Yeah. Well, Mark, you've had a tremendous career so far. Sounds like you're just getting started, and you're passionate about elevating people, brands, industries. Thanks for taking time to open up all these chapters of your life, and we're excited to just continue to enjoy just watching your team build, and you're on the move, and so thanks for sharing the things that keep you passionate and plugged in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
On the move.
On the move. Great job, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
When asked about his legacy, Mark didn't talk about the size of what he'd built. He said he hoped to be remembered as part of a team that helped hundreds of families get into restoration and fulfill their dreams. That's who you just heard from. Nick Hindle, Chief Information Officer at PuroClean, also joined the conversation. 15 years in this industry and still one of the sharpest voices you'll find on where technology is actually taking restoration next. That conversation is coming soon.